Welcome back to the Coffee Break Podcast. Wherever you're sitting right now, whether you're listening or you're watching, I hope you're having a great week. And today I feel this pure joy in welcoming our guest, the Quint Studer. So Quint, welcome to our show.
Thank you so much, Renee. It's a thrill to be here. I've been looking forward to this ever since you invited me. So it's good it's taking place.
Me too. Many of you know Quint. Okay, he is very well known in the healthcare industry. And before I share a few other details about Quint and what he is working on, I wanted to share how I first met Quint. So this was probably about 6 or 7 years ago. I was doing some consulting for a large health system, and our strategies were working. We were getting really great outcomes. And one of the executives and I were talking, and she said, you know what? Your strategies work. So you should really be looking at spreading this and scaling this, not only through our organization, but other organizations. And I thought, oh my, how do I do that? She said, you need to talk to Quint Studer. And I said, Quint Studer, like the Quint Studer? She said, yeah, just reach out, email him. So I did, never expecting a reply. And sure enough, Quint, you replied, and I think within 24 hours, and you said, I'd be happy to hop on a call with you. And we talked for about an hour, and you gave me some really solid advice. And it was in that conversation that I realized that not only were you were an authentic leader, but you walked the talk. And that's so critical, especially now in today's healthcare environment, that people see their leaders as people who actually walk the talk. So I don't know if you remember that, Quint, that when you and I...
No, I remember it very well. And I think the other thing when you look at it is the fact that I personally have used you. I brought you into our companies. I brought you into our community. So that just shows the great respect I have for you, because I wouldn't bring you into my own companies, my own community, if I didn't think the way you were bringing was tremendously worthwhile.
Wow. Well, thank you for that. I so appreciate it. To tell you a little bit more about Quint, Quint is a lifelong student of leadership with a gift for translating complex strategies into doable behaviors that allow organizations to truly achieve long-term success. He is the co-founder of Healthcare Plus Solutions, whose mission is to have a positive impact on the people who receive care and those who provide that care. His company helps organizations to diagnose and treat their most urgent pain points, and there are many right now, in order to achieve and sustain results. And his new book, Rewiring Excellence, Hardwired to Rewired, provides tools and techniques that are doable and that help people, I love this, feel joy in their work. And there's two other things about Quint that I love. His LinkedIn sort of tagline is helping individuals feel grateful about themselves, their job, and their organization. And then one other thing, I'll never forget this, Quint. You had sent out some communication probably about 2 years ago. And it was, I believe, when I was doing some work for you, some virtual work. And you basically said, we have to give people permission to love each other again, just to say, I love you. And that's, when I think about what do I love about Quint is that you're reminding us to not only love each other and even say that, but to love ourselves, and bringing that joy to your organization, but joy for yourself. So I don't know, I'm just thrilled with the opportunity to have you share some of your expertise and your stories and your wisdom with our listeners today. So thank you so much for being here, Quint.
Oh, I'm thrilled. And I love you, Renee Thompson.
I love you too. Okay. There are so many things we can talk about. Quint and I, we are both passionate about culture. And not culture from we need to fix our culture. And so we're going to bring somebody in and do a workshop, because we both know that that doesn't work. Your culture didn't get this way overnight. It's not going to change overnight. Right now, there's such a huge focus on recruitment and retention, there should be. However, there's a part of that recruitment and retention that is overlooked. And that's how we onboard people. And Quint, I know that you're re-looking at new employees and really how we onboard them. So maybe we should start our conversation with that.
I'd like to. Thank you so much. And I think, one of the things that, of course, we all know, one of the things when I go to an organization, I ask the CEO to look up certain metrics. And one of the metrics I asked them to look up is how many leaders do you have that have became a manager or a leader of some sort for the first time since March of 2020. And I never want to be accused of embellishing, so I always go minimum. And I'll say, we're fighting it's 25%. And it's not unusual for an executive to say, I don't think we're that bad. And then he calls me later and says, oh my gosh, we're 52. We're 50, or we've even had some as high as 62. And then we ask, how many new employees do you currently have working, particularly when we look at nursing on the inpatient side? Because, during COVID, people that were working inpatient tried to move to outpatient as much as they could. So in the inside of the hospitals, we could have 50% of our RNs that have less than 3 years experience. So that newness really shocks them. So that we've got to look differently how we develop people, because we can't put a fire hose on them or they leave feeling worse. So I've got a lot of that in my new book, Rewiring. I'd also, and I'm going to talk about this, just tell people where to find it, because Rewiring is like a $10 book. So it's not like I just hawk some fairly expensive piece of equipment here. We also have something in there called a personal retention plan. We're working with an organization right now that has 264 managers they've identified as relatively new. And what we're doing is putting them on a personal retention plan. And Renee, just telling you, Renee, you're really important to us. We want to make sure that you stay and have a good experience. So let us walk through this personal retention plan. And we talk about what's the right place look like for you. What type of skill building are we going to provide you? We talk about other resources. And we say, as part of our monthly conversation, we're always going to keep this in front of us. There's a Hawthorne effect. Just telling you I have that. So we're going to put that on the parking lot and now get into onboarding.
But let me just tell all of you who are listening or watching, we will have a link to that book in our show notes, and actually a link to some other books that Quint has written as well. So thank you.
Well, thank you. So anyway, on onboarding, I did a video years ago that your listeners, viewers can have for free. And it basically walks them through the phases of normal development. And the reason I did this is because, of course, I go to conferences. And when I speak, I always go spend time and hear others and listen to others and learn. And they talked about the phases. And it's in one of my books, but I've changed it for this. It's, what you don't know, you don't know what you don't know. Then you learn what you do know. Then you hit that shock. Oh, my God, I don't know. Then how do you know what you don't know? But I changed it because I think with new employees and new leaders, but we're going to talk about general workforce, they go through a period when you take a job, you're excited. I mean, I don't think anyone, when they get the job offer, goes, oh, crud, I was hoping I didn't.
Yeah.
You're excited.
Well, let's hope not.
Yes. And, you go home and you tell your family. It's pretty cool, especially in healthcare, because they usually, pretty good halo in the community. I'm working for this, no matter what. Right. Yeah, it's an important job. There's no insignificant job in healthcare. So there's excitement. Now, we do know that there's sometimes, for the first time, people accept the job and don't show up to day one. I'm not going to talk about that. Again, I'm going to go into when you do show up. So you show up and you're real excited, and then you hit phase 2 of normal development, which is doubt. Oh my gosh, this is different than I thought. I wonder if I'm going to fit in. I'm never going to be as good as that nurse that can do like this. Will I be invited to lunch? Who am I going to go to break with? How did this work? I don't want to look stupid. And it's that period of doubt. And that's when the period comes of, I don't know if I belong here. I don't know if I fit in. So if you look at when people leave, they actually know sometimes within 2 or 3 weeks, they're already thinking about, this might not be the spot for me. And what we need to let them know is that's normal. So in my video, I walk through, if you're feeling, we show it to all people, all new employees in orientation. And I encourage people to make their own, just use my stuff, anything you want. We could share. We just want to be helpful. So I find if employees know what they're going through is normal, if it's not as abnormal, they're more comfortable. I'm through that phase now where I feel like this. I'm through my phase. I feel like this. Now, at that time, it's vital they feel supported. Like, that's where the teaching comes in. And that's where nursing's always done a better job than most. But
You're right.
Here's your buddy. Here's your preceptor. Here's your friend, blah, blah, blah. And it's okay. I think it's better than most industries because I've looked at other industries. We might actually be a little bit better in this arena. But it might not be enough in today's environment. I'm going to give you some new onboarding techniques here before we finish. So the second and third phase almost overlap. While I'm doubtful, you need to help me know that you're going to support me. So it's sort of like the preceptor just can't say, you need more experience. I need to say, Renee, you need more experience, but that's not unusual. For someone at your experience level, most of us all need more experience.
Right, that reinforcement.
I needed more experience. And here's how we're going to get you that experience. But I want you to know you're completely normal like everyone else at the third week or the fourth week. Because you're comparing yourself to somebody that's been there for 10 years, 8 years. You're comparing inside to somebody else's outside. So if I can give you the support and let you know you got the support, I can hold you long enough to get experience. When you get experience, your anxiety starts going down and you start feeling confident. And it might take 3 months, might take 6 months.
Sure.
Some while. And then you're going to eventually get where someday you can be the teacher. That was what we've always taught until recently.
Yeah.
So I think that's good. I think it works. But we found out it wasn't enough. Because even with all of that, there's still too much early departures. Even if you do what I just talked about, it might help it a little bit, but there's still too many people leaving. Anywhere between 27% of people that leave within the first 90 days, 50% leave within the first year. So again, even with that, it's better than what was done, but it's not enough. So some new learnings. And this first time this has ever been on a podcast. So
I'm excited. I feel very honored.
Well, thank you. I was speaking in Naples at their healthcare system. And when I walked in, there was an older gentleman. And, up to that age where everybody 10 years older than me is older. When my Aunt Mill was 90, he had to be 100 to be old. So anyway.
Yes, I agree.
So he's taking notes. And I know I was introduced to him, but I got to speak. I noticed he was taking copious notes at the front. I finished, and he was very nice, very kind. But we started talking. And he introduced himself. He's Ralph Studer. He's the founder of Johnsonville Foods, which is sold in 40 states, $1 billion company. It started with his parents in a little butcher shop in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, which is the bride capital of the world. Anyway, so he shared with me that at Johnsonville Foods, they really were fully staffed. And I'm thinking, well, if you can be fully staffed, not that that's not important, but healthcare seems to be pretty vital. And he explained that just like healthcare, they were noticing they hired people, but they were having too many early departures. So they started meeting with the existing employees to talk about these early departures. How does it impact them? And of course, they started sharing, well, sometimes we have to work more hours. Got all these new people in here. When you got new people, things take longer. Now, all of a sudden, health organizations are spending $1 million trying to do length of stay. And I said, the best thing they could do is just retain their employees because retention reduces length of stay because you have experience.
That's right.
I just loved learning from Ralph. And I went back and I started looking at certain things again. And when you look at an employee engagement survey results, or when I do these exercises we do in a room, we'll say, why did you pick healthcare? And they all talk. Then we talk about, why do you work in your department? And because, they like your department.
Sure.
They say, when I was going through my divorce, they held me together. When my dad had cancer, they were there. We're like a family. So I thought, well, the number one thing a person likes about their job is their coworkers.
Right.
How long does it take someone to feel immersed in with their coworkers? So I started asking this question. How long does it take a new employee to truly feel like they fit in with their coworkers? Usually 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, depending on the shifts, depending if you're floating, depending if you're doing. So I started saying, well, if coworkers are what retains a person, then how do we commit and connect that coworker to the new employee much, much sooner? So I started digging and pulling apart onboarding. And here's how we onboard today. We physically onboard, which means here's where you park, here's what you wear, here's your name badge, here's where you go to work, here's where you sit, here's the computer. We sort of physically tell them how to onboard physically. Then we do what I call tactical onboarding. So here's your password, here's how to sign in. If you're a nurse, here's the equipment, here's our electronic medical record, here's how we handle falls, infections, here's how you do shift report. We do I think, a pretty good job with tactical learning. So if we've always done a pretty good job with physical onboarding and tactical onboarding, why do we still have all these departures? So I've come up with my hypothesis that we've got organizations doing it to see if it works. We're missing something which I've now called emotional onboarding.
Yeah.
So how do we get the person to feel committed emotionally? So I've also studied some other things that help people quickly feel they belong, because that's where we're going for, is this is the place I belong.
Right.
If looking at different things, I looked at recovery, alcoholics and drug addicts. So if you go to a recovery meeting, which I've been to many with my 41 recovery, you go to a meeting and the new person comes in. Sometimes they're with someone, but a lot of times, I don't care if they're with someone or alone, they're lonely. And they're wondering, is this the right place for me? Do I fit in? Do I belong? And then immediately everyone starts sharing how they felt their first meeting. And about halfway through this meeting, which is normally an hour, you can see people start to look around and feel like I can connect to that person, along with this person. Afterwards, women to women, men to men, they start saying, I'll have coffee with you. I'll call you. Let's talk. So I started thinking about emotional onboarding. And it went from the videotape you send to the new employee from their future coworkers, tell them they can't wait to meet them, can't wait to see them. They're glad they're going to be here. Here's where you're going to be working. Here's this. To they start. And if you look at when I did this when I was president of a hospital with nurse orientation, we had new grads and we had existing nurses. And the existing nurses didn't look like they were excited to be in there. And the new grads looked scared to be in there. So I had the existing nurses just share what they felt like their first day as a new grad on the job. By the time we got halfway through, all of a sudden, the new grads looked more comfortable because, oh my gosh, you felt like this too. The existing nurses had a lot more empathy. They took them back to what it was like and they were new. And they felt they were connected. So in a department, any department, but my love is in nursing. I tend to go there a lot. The nurses get together with everybody in the unit, could be unit secretary, CNA, everyone, and talk about what it was like their first days on the job. And all of a sudden the person says, I get to know you better. It's expanding the preceptor beyond one person. And then you actually start saying, and you do this on purpose, Susie, will you take Renee to coffee this morning? Bob, will you talk about this tool we have here? Susie, will you share with them about how we do this? So now he gets a piece of the orientation and the precepting. And then instead of saying, we as a team consider ourselves retention people. So we celebrate retention. We celebrate when the person's been there 30 days. We celebrate when the person's been there 60 days. Because if we get them through a year, we're pretty good. And then it becomes not the manager's job of retention, not the preceptor's job of retention, which they both have to own. It becomes the department is a retention department. And I just think that we can work people through that emotional onboarding it makes a huge, huge difference. Because as Gallup says, if I feel I have somebody at work that I trust, but we're not just putting this on one preceptor. So we call it emotional onboarding. And I think I'm very excited. When I talk to CEOs, I was talking to Mark Clement at TriHealth about this. He immediately had a meeting with his chief human resource officer, his chief operating officer, and said, we've got to do this. We've got
I love it when somebody takes action. They hear something, they learn something, and they take action on it. Quint, there's so much to unpack here. I'm not sure you even know this about me, but before I started my company to, address workplace bullying and incivility, I was responsible for basically all things related to the student experience, the new grad experience, preceptors, professional development. I know the new nurse population very well. And everything that you're talking about is resonating with me on, like, you're ticking all the boxes, because people think that only one preceptor is responsible for onboarding, or orienting a new employee. And that is so far from the truth, because it's everyone. And I love how, okay, Susie, you take her for coffee today, and, Jim, why don't you show this, because this is what you're really good at, the documentation piece. There is one strategy that we have implemented that really speaks to what you're talking about, but you've taken it to a whole other level. One of the things, because I know new grads are scared when they start their first job. The number, in our experience, working with a lot of student nurses transitioning into professional practice, their number one fear was hurting a patient. Actually, they would say killing a patient, because they didn't have the comfort and the security of their instructor with them.
No, so a friend of ours' daughter became a nurse, and the first thing she said her first day is, oh my gosh, I could kill someone.
Yes. Oh, when I was a new grad and I worked a cardiac step-down unit, and I remember I would hang, that was back in the day when we would hang lidocaine drips on cardiac patients. And I thought, one wrong press of a button and I could kill that patient. Okay, well, luckily they're on a monitor and we have people there, but I was very aware that there was that risk. So number one is patient harm, but number two was the people who they work with, especially their preceptor. So we came up with this strategy that we asked all the preceptors. So if you're I always believe there needs to be a primary preceptor, but it's everyone that needs to be responsible for that person's, orientation. But to have that preceptor call that new nurse a week before they're to start and say, hey, Kim, I am so excited. My name is Renee. I'm going to be your preceptor. We're thrilled that you're going to be starting with us. Do you know where you're going? Do you know what to wear? Do you know what to park? So some of the physical, orientation that you referred to, but more so it was that emotional. If the number two reason, or what scares them, the second reason that they're afraid is their preceptor, and you have the preceptor call them a week ahead, you just alleviated their second fear.
I think we've also done a nice job of training our preceptors. Normally we go up to somebody who's a good nurse and we say, are you a preceptor? And they might be a great nurse, but they might not be a great preceptor. Katie Boston-Leary, the NA, we want mentors, not tormentors. And I don't think people do this. Yes. So when I was at President Hospital, a new nurse came up to me and said, yeah, I really like what you're doing, but I've quit. And I said, why'd you quit? And she said, well, I always wanted to be a nurse. I got pregnant in high school. I'm a single mother. I had to wait till my daughter got to be a certain age to go back. And I always wanted to work here. And so she told me why she wanted to work here, why you want to be a nurse, and why'd you quit? She said, because my preceptor told me I'm not going to make it. She never told her that. The preceptor just innocently said something that she took as you're not going to make it. And again, when the preceptor heard that, she was horrified. But we teach people development, the whole bit, the emotional aspect of development, the assuring someone that you're going to be okay, that we got your back. So I think also we've put preceptors in a tough situation sometimes where you naturally know how to do this. And that's, I'm a big believer that it's cool to say, we're certifying you as a preceptor right now, that you're this, you understand emotional development. Because again, it's not tactical, it's not physical development we lose them, it's emotional development. That's why we have this emotional onboarding now.
I think it's so smart. And, I've said this many, many times that the preceptor role is the most important role in an organization.
Yep.
Because they are responsible for it's not just onboarding, again, not the physical and the tactical onboarding. It's helping that new person fully immerse in your organization. And, I think about the values of your organization and how they show up every day, and the culture of your department and how we support each other as a team, how everybody has each other's backs and not worrying about stabbing each other in the back. And if you can teach anyone almost any skill, but part of that preceptor's responsibility is not to just make sure that they're safe to practice, that they know how to use the medication, machine and charts and document, but it's how do they show up as a valuable member of that team, and how do they feel that the people that they're working with. So if I'm a new grad, how do I feel that I'm in a safe place, that if the people I'm working with, I can actually admit to them that I don't know something without fear of being made to feel stupid or treated poorly because I've made a mistake or that I don't know something, because that's what's happening out there right now. We have a lot of new people that aren't admitting that they don't know something because they're afraid of how they're going to be treated. And Preceptor has that, and I love how you said it's the emotional onboarding piece.
Well, let me throw out something too that came from our study on nursing. That's actually, on our website too. It's the care model. And so for new nurses, we ask nurses in general, but we can talk about, it hits new nurses more. And I know this wasn't our main topic, but I'll put it sort of an adjunct discussion we can have.
Sure.
Today. When you ask nurses what's demotivators for them, number one is too much turnover of CNAs, who's vital to them. But the second one is charge nurses and staffing. And because the great push to reduce travel dollars, is what we're trying to reduce. Many, again, early on charge nurses who are great team players took a staff load, not knowing they'd still be doing it 4 years out. And the CNO almost is recognized for, hey, you took travel nurses down. But when you look at the data, for new nurses, a charge nurse is a lifeline. So when staffing, we've lost a lifeline. So again, when I share this with CEOs, the normal thing is, wow, you're right. We're going to bring enough travelers back to get our charge nurses out of staffing, because it's a retention tool for our newer nurses, because they need that charge nurse desperately. And when do they need them the most? PMs and weekends.
Yes, they do.
So that's just some caveats of data and research that when I tell it to CEOs, once it clicks, these are smart people, it clicks. Yeah. I'm gaining here on travel dollars, but I'm losing over here on retention.
Yeah, and I think it's an issue right now that it's almost short-sighted, where they're looking at their financial resources as that's their responsibility to be fiscally mindful. However, you have to take a look at the cause. And you had said, okay, what are the demotiviers? Like what's going to cause you to be so frustrated here that you're going to leave? And yes, if you have charge nurses without an assignment, and then you make them staff so that you can save a few dollars by removing your travelers, you're going to end up losing more money because people are going to leave. Because I will tell you what, in a heartbeat, any day, I will pick up another patient to allow someone to be in charge without an assignment, so that they can be that person who can help me with discharges or the flow or running interference for me. Because I guess it was about 8 years ago, I actually went back into staffing. So I've been a nurse for 32 years. I've had this company for 12 years, but I wanted to go back to the bedside to see what it was like, because I thought by doing so, it would help me to do this work better. And I got some good stories, when I went back to the bedside. I mean, I swiped in and swiped out like everybody else. I think the last time I had to swipe in is when we had the old time clocks and it was a piece of paper and you had the, put the paper in and it would stamp the time. So there was a lot of tactical learning that I had to do. But the only way that I got through, because remember, I'm not a new nurse. I'm an experienced nurse, but I hadn't been at the bedside in a while. What got me through those few years that I staffed again was having a charge nurse without an assignment. They were my lifeline. Wow. And again, this is me as an experienced nurse where I will admit I have never done this before. Will somebody help me? You got new nurses who aren't going to admit that.
You get another win, Renee, because in trust, one of the big issues in trust today is frontline people are wondering, do the senior executives know what work is like? So when the CEO gets up and says, wow, I've looked at this and we're going to take charge nurses out of staffing, immediately, hey, he or she knows what I'm doing here. They know what's going on here. So that's something that, I always like to dig in and, that's why our company diagnoses first. We just don't run in and say, here's a book, here's a treatment plan. That's right. What your pain point is. So I'm very excited about emotional onboarding. I really think we're onto something with this.
Well, knowing that, again, I've been doing some of this work, especially with the new grad population for quite some time now. Everything you said really resonates with not only me, but other people who are actually working with this new population of nurses. And it's a different environment right now. It's almost as though it's a part one of a part two plan, where part one is you have to give them all the technical skills that they need and where their locker is and where do they park and their benefits and all of that. But what's been missing is that part two, and that's that human piece. It's the, do I feel a sense of belonging? And I love that their first day, you have other people who have been there talk about what their first day was like and how scared they were, is to give that reassurance that I'm not alone, that other people felt this way. And by doing that, especially with some of the experienced nurses, because let's be real here, sometimes they're not very nice to the new people. Especially right now, what is happening is that the new graduate nurses coming out of nursing school are really the least prepared new graduate nurses we've seen. And it's because they've learned during a global pandemic, how are they supposed to get those really rich clinical skills? Well, they didn't. And the experienced nurses are a little angry about the fact that they don't even possess some of the minimum skills that they think they should have. And, I always say, you're right, they are the least prepared, but it's not their fault. Quit being so mean to them.
And be careful you don't think you can make it up. So recently at an organization, we're taking a 1-year new nurse orientation and saying, let's jam it down in 6 months because they need it so bad. Well, in the book Rewiring, I talk about, is it doable? If you learn 1 or 2 new skills at a time, there's about 100% chance you're going to acquire them. When you add the third one, it goes down to 50%. So again, part of that whole training and development is sequencing it correctly to build on strengths instead of creating frustration.
Yeah. So if we take a look at when you said phase 1, they're excited. Mm-hmm. Phase 2, they're like, uh-oh, what have I done? What have I gotten myself into?
They're doubting the right decision. Are they in the right place?
Am I in the right place? Because right now they have a lot of choices. New people can go anywhere right now.
Difference, in the old days, and I'm saying old days, when there were more jobs than people, somebody would gut through this time, even though it was painful, to get to the other side because they didn't have choices. Today, they're going to move real quick if they don't think this is the right
they will
opportunity.
Yeah, they won't allow themselves the discomfort of working in a department where they don't feel, again, valued, sense of belonging, all the things that we know. They'll be like, I'm out of here. I'm going to go down the street. I think your third phase, was that the learning phase?
The support phase. That we're going to support phase. We're going to hold your hand. We're going to have your back. We're not going to let you alone. We're in there with you. And that happens almost immediately. You have to go down both roads. The quicker you let them know their support, even though they still have doubt, they have less doubt. And then they start, because of this support, they start gaining experience, which is the fourth phase. Then eventually they'll become the mastery level where things won't take as long. They can multitask and they become your future teachers, your mentors, your preceptors.
Yeah, or maybe your future leaders.
Yes.
You know, I remember, again, I worked cardiac step down when I was a brand new nurse, and there was a nurse who was your role model for what an experienced, competent nurse, not only how she performed, but everything about her oozed support and trust and belonging and all the things that you would want from a human being. And her name was Marianne Guido. And I remember thinking when I was brand new, I want to be just like Marianne, because again, she was that role model. There were some other people who I worked with that I don't want to be like them because, you know, they were not really, you know, great people. But Marianne was everything. And I remember asking her how long she had been a nurse. And she said 5 years. So I thought, okay, I just have to get to 5 years and then I'll be as smart and as competent as Marianne. And then I got to 5 years and I realized I still have so much more to learn. And then I got to 10 years and oh my gosh, I still haven't mastered it. And, you know, obviously I got to the point where I realized that one of the smartest things any of us can do is recognize that we don't know everything. But to get on that path of continuous learning and, you know, like you, Quint, you know, lifelong student of leadership and of learning. And before we hopped on, we really talked about this, how we incorporate that as a personal strategy. So when you're even looking at your personal, your retention strategy, where's that development in there? Where's that learning? Because it's so critical to every role in healthcare today. So as we wrap up, if a chief nurse, a COO, a senior leader, or even a frontline leader is listening to this and they resonate with our conversation and they want to focus on making sure that they incorporate some emotional onboarding with their new employees, what would you recommend they do? Like, what would be a first step?
Well, I think, again, the book Rewiring, we touch on it, you know, hardwire, because so many people read my book Hardwire that they don't realize they've got to be flexible, that some things don't work like they used to. For example, in Hardwire, I say meet somebody on the 30th and 90th day. Today, they're gone. You might want to meet with them on the first day, the third day, and seventh day. And also, I think really follow me on LinkedIn as we produce, because we're really producing a lot of new material on this emotional onboarding right now, because we're just finding, again, it resonates with people. And so we don't wait till it's all done to roll it out, because if it can help somebody today, it can help them today. So I would follow me on LinkedIn as we develop this. If they contact me, of course, at quintstuder.com, we'll send them the 6-minute video that they can utilize, that some are utilizing it. And they can just take it and make it their own. They have to be Quint Studer. But it really, I think we're onto something with this emotional onboarding, just looking how you've reacted. You react like everyone's reacted. Not that we haven't done pieces of it, but maybe we've done more on the tactical and the physical side than we have the emotional side.
Yes, and we are emotional creatures as human beings, and we need to recognize that because, again, there's been a lot of conversations out there right now on well-being, both from the employee, from the leader perspective, that this also plays a role in that emotional well-being of our people.
Well, I think well-being is an interesting thing, because when you talk to executives and you ask them about well-being, I would have done the same thing. Well, we offer an EAP. We have health, have wellness, which healthcare does a great job offering resources. Now, people don't use them, but we do a great job offering them. And we do have, in our website, we talk about how to increase that. But we sometimes don't realize to the employee, well-being is staffing. Well-being is resources. Well-being is what I've just talked about, having the skill building. 92% of managers today want more skill building and career development, and 84% of frontline people. So if you're not developing me and investing in me, we call it investing. You're not caring about my well-being. So I think we need to broaden to the definition of well-being to be more encompassing than just, do you go to the EAP? And I think that's a big shock. We wrote the book Trust, sharing it with CEOs. Always the first thing is we don't trust senior leader. Second one is we don't feel our organization supports us. The third one is I don't think they care about my well-being. The fourth one is I'm not being recognized like I should. And the fifth one is I just don't feel I belong. So if we do everything I've talked about, we also increase the sense of well-being, that they care about me. And that's what we say, we care about you. We want to support you. We want to invest in you. We want to make sure that you feel comfortable in this role.
Yeah, you just take everything and you up level it just a little bit, because it's like a ripple effect. You do one positive, we're investing in you. I'm going to meet with you on maybe day 3 and day 7. This is what are your goals? What were you, some of your aspirations? I'm thinking about the leader, their, retention plan. Hey, there's a great program. I'd love to, get you involved in this, or here's an opportunity. These are all little ripple effects that one of those meaningful conversations and supportive conversations you have with one person, how that can spread across your organization. And you have done such a great job your whole career providing really valuable frameworks and strategies that people can just grab, and then incorporate into their department, their organization, their culture. So, oh my gosh, we'll have all of these, everything that Quint talked about. Don't worry. We'll have links in the show notes, and including a link to Quint's LinkedIn page, his email, if you want to, or even message him on LinkedIn to get that video. I'm going to get a copy of that video too. I want to see it.
Well, I think it's something I did years ago for our own use. So we show our own workforce, because, we're like anything else. We're a microcosm of what we're trying to do. And, I always joke I'm a plumber with leaky pipes, but I don't want them to be leaky. I'm trying to fix them all the time. But yeah, it resonates with what we're trying to do. And we also tell anybody, and my people somehow took my stuff and they made it so scripted. I'm way more flexible than they are. Somebody will say, well, we don't know if we want to do that. Well, change it. Try it.
Right. Make it work for you.
Yeah. Look at your own tech retention. But I do think the group taking ownership of retention is also a key, that they measure retention. This is our retention. This is look how many people we're keeping. And that's what I learned from Ralph at Johnsonville Foods. He really did a good job getting the coworkers to see this is their job. Not only their job, but how they benefit from holding on to people. Because who pays the price but the coworker that's still there? The new person, they're gone to their next new job.
Oh my gosh, so smart. Just so, when you think about it, it's so simple, but yet it's not being done. You hear this all the time. What's easy to do is, not always easy to commit to doing, but it's one of those things where if you can actually turn your entire team into a retention team, so that it's not one person's responsibility, could be a game changer for you. So Quint, oh my gosh, thank you so much for being here. It's always the best part of my day, my week, my month, when I get to spend a little bit of time with you. And I just know our audience will greatly benefit from your great work. It's been decades of amazing work in making healthcare truly a better place. So thank you.
Well, thank you. So happy to be a friend of yours. Thank you.
Yes. All right, everyone who's listening, thank you for being here, and, keep up the great work that you're doing to cultivate and sustain a healthy work culture. And if you like this episode, make sure you rate it, review, and share it with others. Thanks, everyone. Take care.